Hello, people of the internet, and welcome to the latest edition of our look at the history of Godzilla in animation. I am your host, Andres Perez, aka Kaiju Noir, and as usual, as you should expect this to be, here is my
surprise.
here is my co-host, Mr. Matthew Denian.
Hey everybody, I hope you're enjoying listening to these podcasts as much as Andres and I are enjoying recording them for you guys. So let's move along to our next one.
Yes. So it's like, yeah, you get the picture already. You know who we are. On to the next review. So this episode, we're being for this installment, we're actually going to be looking at a much shorter piece of media, that being Shin-Chan versus Shin Godzilla, which was just another random episode in the long-running series, anime series, Shin-Chan, where that appeared in July, or roughly around the time as Shin Godzilla's release in Japanese movie theaters. During this time, there was a lot of promotion for this crossover, even though it wasn't that big of a deal in the bigger picture. It was just, like, each episode is roughly 18 minutes long, with each episode is composed of two little stories, each story being 9 minutes long. So this is really just a 9-minute second half to a random episode of Shin-Chan, which does make it very difficult to find online. But if you're looking for it online, just look up like Shin-Chan episode 901. Now, I don't know if that means it's the 901st episode of Shin-Chan, or if it's like the season, it's like the American numbering system where we say like season 9 episode 1. Right. But given how long this series has been going on, I wouldn't be surprised if this was the 900th episode, especially given how short these episodes are and how it's a very simple premise for this TV show slash manga series. So the basic premise for Shin-Chan is it takes place in Kazukabe, Saitama Prefecture, where we follow this 5-year-old by the name of Shinnosuke Nohara, or they would shorten his name from Shinnosuke to Shin-Chan. And he basically gets into a lot of crazy mischief. He is not a very smart individual. He's very selfish, like any other 5-year-old child. And right. He and his friends go into shenanigans, be it like in school or in his neighborhood. And I guess occasionally there are these wacky, more fantastical one-off episodes where it's almost like a dreamlike episode. Even like the advertising, the promo for this crossover compared this to being a dreamlike crossover. So Shin-Chan and his friends are just like kind of reimagined in a different setting, and the whole appeal of this is like seeing how these characters would act in this sort of setting.
Right. I think the only thing I can compare to for our Western audiences might be how like the Looney Tunes or the Mickey Mouse characters sometimes just inexplicably appear in some different time period, the Revolutionary War, for instance, type of thing like that, perhaps.
Oh, yeah, totally. Or it's like Daffy Duck is like Robin Hood, and he's trying to convince Porky Pig that he is the real deal.
Right, that type of thing, yes.
Yeah. And so Shin-Chan first appeared in the manga as a manga series in 1990. There was an anime adaptation on TV Asahi in 1992, and it has been dubbed in 30 languages, aired in 45 countries, has over 940 episodes, 25 full-length feature films, and has gone on to become the 24th highest-grossing animated franchise. And having more than 100 million copies of the manga sold worldwide. So even though for a lot of Godzilla fans, they probably don't know who the hell Shin-Chan is, he is, without a doubt, a big freaking deal.
Right, and it's interesting, we were talking a little bit about this before we started recording, that for a long time it's been said we want to see Godzilla in anime, and we talked about there were so many great characters that Godzilla could have crossed over with in anime in terms of like Voltron or Gundam or Dragon Ball Z,
yeah.
Right? or go down a list of other great characters he could have crossed over with.
Like,
And
yeah, Mazinger Z, or
right,
One Piece, for all we know, yeah, like something that's like an action related anime, and that's mostly because we who grew up on anime in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, we were mostly exposed to the action oriented or shonen anime that came from Japan.
right. But apparently Shin-Chan is a big deal, even though I wasn't aware of him. Like most people I talked to in the West were not aware of him either as a character. But I guess it kind of be like the odd pairing of Batman and Scooby-Doo, which seems to work out. And a new movie just came out for that too. But where like you might think Batman needs to be with a character who's an action-based character, but Scooby-Doo is well known. So, like Shin-Chan seems to be maybe that level of well known in Japan.
Yeah, or it's just like, let's see how these crazy characters from two tonally opposite
Right.
levels of entertainment would interact with each other. As you mentioned, like you just hear Scooby, it's like Zoink Scoob, it's Batman and Robin. Yeah, right.
It was really good, actually.
Like, thanks, man.
You're welcome, Matthew Lillard.
Let's see, and we had I think for a very short period of time, Crayon Shin-Chan actually did appear on American television from 2006 to 2009, brought to us in English dubbed through Funimation on Adult Swim of all places.
Really?
Yeah, having looked at the episode itself, the full episode, I can sort of see it why it would have somewhat of an adult fan base, because I think there are quite a lot of adults that do still follow Shin-Chan, because it is, even though it does present itself as a kid's show, I think there's quite a lot of interesting humor thrown about here. It's almost like a very, I would describe it as like a slapstick, slice of life, cynical take on like a Rugrats like premise.
Yes, and so Rugrats is probably a good comparison for most people here in the U.S. and Canada to look at and see how the stories kind of go. Although in terms of the humor, it might be a little bit more akin from what I've seen to the early cartoon stuff on Cartoon Network, like Cow and Chicken, or
Dexter's Laboratory,
Johnny Bravo, I Am Weasel. Like, I think it's more in lines with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Powerpuff Girls.
Right.
Yeah, where it's like there's a lot of silly, random slapsticky stuff, but there's also a lot of well-written humor there that I think anybody can enjoy. And of course, there's your typical butt humor that like a lot of kids are sure to dig.
Right.
One of the most reoccurring gags, from what I understand, is from what my students tell me, and from what I saw in the episode itself, the full episode itself, is that Shin-Chan has running gag, has like a tendency of mispronouncing a lot of words in his language, so that characters would often have to correct him on his Japanese.
Yes, yeah. Which the version I saw was actually Japanese dubbed in Spanish. So my Spanish reading is okay, but it seemed like that was a funky thing going on there. So
yeah. And I was impressed by I saw the version I saw was had English subtitles, so they would misspell the English word within the subtitles in order to properly translate that joke.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
So good on the subtitlers for doing that. And let's see. And one thing I know about Shin-Chan is that apparently there are a portion of Japanese parents who did not like Shin-Chan, and there was a bit of controversy that came out of that, thinking that the character was too inappropriate for young children to watch, because maybe it was just like, here's this mischievous character who teaches bad Japanese and has a lot of inappropriate butt humor. I don't know. But I thought it was very interesting that of all the shows that have gained any sort of backlash from parents, it would be Shin-Chan. Meanwhile, in America, especially during the 90s, a lot of parents were got upset over violent television programs, especially during the age when Power Rangers became a thing, and people were afraid that Power Rangers and shows of that kind would teach children to solve their problems through violence.
Right, but at the same time, parents didn't really complain about like Ren and Stimpy, which had like a lot of adult humor in it.
I will tell you, my mother did not like Ren and Stimpy.
Oh, really? Your mom didn't? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like my mom was okay with violence. It's like, as long as it's fantasy, There's nothing wrong. But sex and adult humor, it's like, no, that stuff, that's more close to reality. Yeah, like I was lucky to grow up with a family household that let me watch Terminator and RoboCop at a young age.
Oh, it's good parenting on their part.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and of course, watching Godzilla movies where a disguised Mechagodzilla can rip poor Anguirus' jaw in half.
Exactly. And I guess maybe again the cartoon comparison might be more apt here because you had like that I don't know his name, but like the Red Devil guy that would be in all the shows.
I'm surprised they got away with the red guy in Cow and Chicken.
Right, and he was always had his butt out like Shin-Chan seems to do too, and be doing weird things with it. So.
Yeah. Let's see. And let's not forget Cow and Chicken's favorite food in that series, pork butts.
Right, yeah.
Pork butts and taters. I remember that.
Yeah.
Why do I remember that? I have no idea. So let's get into this crossover then. So basically, it is set up in this like alternate version of the Shin-Chan world where Godzilla exists. He pops out. He appears in Tokyo.
Specifically, sorry to cut you off. It's the fourth version of Shin Godzilla that pops up. So people will think we're seeing all the changes and stuff like you in the movie.
Yeah.
So,
by the way, I will say this: it's so crazy to think that of all the incarnations of Godzilla they could have chosen, they chose the creepiest, most gruesome version of Godzilla to put in this weird, wacky, hyper stylized world.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. It is kind of like the zombie Godzilla, if you will. Some people will call Shin Godzilla, and yeah, they put him in this world, so it's really bizarre. I won't say bad, but strange. Yeah, bizarre. That's a good word.
Yeah. And also, it is. I understand why they did that because this was clearly made to promote Shin Godzilla as it was coming to out in theaters. And it's funny because nowadays, most children, when they see Godzilla, they'll refer to any version of Godzilla as Shin Godzilla because now that is the only Godzilla they have been directly exposed to.
Oh, okay. Right, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's like if you grew up, like for me, I grew up with Ultraman Tiga, so if I were to happen to have seen any Ultraman parody or Ultraman character in the 2000s as a little child, I would say, oh, that looks like Ultraman Tiga.
Okay, I got it. Right.
Yeah, but anyways, Godzilla shows up, he's wreaking havoc like he usually would, and so in this version we have ourselves I know I wrote this down here, the Self-Defense Force team, which is composed of the kindergartners of including Shin-Chan and his classmates. It was the Kasukabe Defense Force. So the Kasukabe Defense Force, they name Godzilla. Well, Shin-Chan names Godzilla because he combines the words Shinya, which means at night, and Goji, which means 5 o'clock. So he thinks the monster appears at 5 o'clock at night, Shinya Goji, so he says, let's call it Shin Gojira, even though everyone tells him, no, he appeared 5 in the morning, and he's like, screw it, whatever, I don't care.
Oh, okay, I was going to say, like, it's definitely during the day when he pops up, so it must be one of those more, like, play on words type of comedy you were talking about where he's mispronouncing the words, right?
Yeah, and the fact that he is kind of a bit slow, and everyone has to like keep him up to speed, and kind of he gets distracted by other things. Mm-hmm. So after doing a great parody, I think, of the boardroom meetings with the laptops, and even talking to the prime minister, who I'm pretty sure is not the prime minister, but is like some other supporting character in the show. Because the entire cast are just like supporting characters, just fit into the roles that you would expect in a Godzilla movie. The self-defense force, the government workers, the politicians. And so the one of Shin-Chan's classmates who's playing the role as a typical professor in a Godzilla movie, he would say like, I knew something like this would happen, so I made this. And he has what is referred to in Japanese as the Oyajigen Oki Kunaru Ya, which means the like father big becomer. Like it's a thing. It's really hard to like translate the joke, but Oyajigen is basically like father gen, and Oki Kunaru Ya means like something that makes you big. So the subtitles refer to it as the father gen gigantifier. as obviously a parody of the Oxygen Destroyer, and he uses that to make Shin-Chan grow big so that he can fight Godzilla, at which point he and the Kasukabe Defense Force use an opposite device called the Oyajigen Destroyer, obviously more of an homage to the Oxygen Destroyer, so that the team can shrink Godzilla, send him back to the ocean, and it is hinted that the effects will soon wear off and they may have to do the whole thing all over again.
Right, and it actually looks like the Oxygen Destroyer, except it's got like a little pig face in the middle that, squirts out the gas that affects Godzilla and Shin-Chan.
And gas that, of course, this being like a very surrealist comedy sort of thing, the gases produced came from Shin-Chan's dad's socks, because apparently the scent from his socks can increase or decrease the size of any organism.
Right, so they show like a giant gorilla and a giant bird and a giant moth,
Right, as like perhaps homages. I like how even the bird, you see like two little horns on his head, so you can tell,
yes.
Okay, this is Rodan, this is Mothra, this is King Kong.
Right.
And there's also, I like the smaller bits of adult comedy here, where there's a part where Godzilla steps on Shin-Chan's house, at which point, the father's like, "No, wait, don't do it. I have 32 years left on the loan." And then, as soon as the house is destroyed, there's a subtitle. Oh, that's another great thing, parody of Shin Godzilla, where they do a lot of those crazy subtitles to break down like the positions of the rankings of all the characters, all the locations. And so when Godzilla destroys the house, it says like crushed, like the salaryman's crushed dreams.
Okay. Yeah, so that's a humor I wasn't getting in that. What else I thought was kind of funny, though, is even when they expose Shin-Chan to this enlarging formula, he's still only about a quarter the size of Shin Godzilla when he has to go out to fight him. It's not like they're on equal terms or anything like that. But he'll do things like Shin Godzilla blasts Shin-Chan with his breath, and it doesn't do anything to Shin-Chan. He just kind of laughs it off and dances around as he's getting blasted with it.
Yeah. Of course, nothing is ever taken seriously in this series. As soon as the moment he grows big, it's another butt humor as everyone looks up Shin-Chan's pantsless body.
Right, and when they finally do put the version of the Oxygen Destroyer is going to shrink Godzilla down, it's kept in Godzilla's mouth by Shin-Chan plugging Godzilla's mouth with his butt. Right. So.
Right. And there was also, another moment where he sees this pretty girl, adult girl that he actually has a crush on in the series itself, and so she becomes his main motivation for actually going out and fighting Godzilla. So it's a nice way, if you're a fan of Shin-Chan, it's very cute seeing these characters get small little cameos throughout this special.
Mm-hmm. And an interesting thing I thought about the series, and you mentioned it a bit too, was that they draw the characters with their typical Shin-Chan animation, but they draw Shin Godzilla differently. It's much more serious looking for Shin Godzilla. Mm-hmm. You would think a Shin Godzilla anime would look, which makes it look even weirder in this world that he just kind of pops up in.
Yeah, they do try to simplify his body a bit, make him less bloody, just give him a bunch of red, almost like the red tiger stripes all over his body.
Right.
They made his arms less bloody, and the biggest change I think actually that works a lot for this design is the eyes, because unlike Godzilla, who kind of has his blank stare off to the sides, this Godzilla actually looks forward. He actually looks at his targets, and he has this great shadow around his eyes that gives him a very menacing, villainous appearance. And it's funny because I've noticed in stylized versions of Godzilla 2014, a lot of artists do the same thing of putting a black shadow around Hollywood Godzilla's eyes.
It definitely makes the Shin Godzilla and Shin-Chan seem more conscious of what he's doing, as opposed to in Shin Godzilla, where for the most part he's just kind of walking forward until something occurs to him.
Yeah. This version of Godzilla kind of doesn't feel like Godzilla, Shin Godzilla. Rather, he feels like your typical like Heisei, like villainous, just destroying. I'm going to destroy everything because fuck you. That's why Godzilla.
Right, just looks more like Shin Godzilla, definitely.
Right, and even comes right down to the atomic breath, which is portrayed as a blue beam of radiation, like the Heisei series. Probably because I don't know whether or not the animators were not allowed to spoil the surprise of Shin Godzilla's purple laser beams, or they just didn't care and they wanted to stick to what was familiar.
Yeah, because they didn't do like that black breath either, followed by the flame breath. It just was the typical beam that came out.
Yeah, this is just a generic, villainous Godzilla with the appearance of Shin Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I think it overall works. Like Godzilla does everything you would expect out of Godzilla, a general version of Godzilla. In fact, maybe this could be the closest representation of Godzilla in animation so far.
Yeah, you know what? I think you might be right now that I think about it. I would think it's either, ironically, this one or the first one we did with the Arctic Giant, which really was pre-Godzilla, not Godzilla even at the time.
Right.
Coming across. So just kind of funny that we talk about it like that.
Looking back on like the history of Godzilla in animation, it is quite fascinating how many different takes on Godzilla they have done that wildly moves away from the traditions, the traditional depictions you would see in cinema. But let's see, anything else to talk about this short?
I don't think so, because like you said, it is pretty short, and I didn't get a lot of the jokes because of the translation difference there. Even I think, like you said, more Japanese than I do. Even if I saw an English translation, I still feel like I might miss some of the nuances of the jokes as they went through. So
the only joke I could really remember was that I could actually tell from the Japanese was they were referring to, in Japanese, the word for prime minister is sori, and so there was like a what do you call it? A thing you would tag into. Oh, I forgot what you call it. An honorific, I suppose, where they would have an honorific attached to Sori, and Shin-Chan, not being good at Japanese, he uses the wrong thing at the end of Sori, and so after the Prime Minister corrects him, he goes, "Oh, sorry," as in he was saying the English word sorry.
The only thing I can think of is I felt like this episode, and this might just be my not knowing Shin-Chan very well, kind of had a little bit of a big man Japan feel to it with the way that Shin-Chan blew up.
I was kind of like laughing to myself, knowing how I was going to be reviewing this with you, and we had just recently done a review for Big Man Japan a while back.
Because there's similar scenes where like they have the clothes kind of splayed out for him for when he's going to grow and stuff like that, and then he's kind of woefully overmatched by the monster he's got to go face. It very much reminded me of Big Man Japan. And that the fact that his father had something to do with the way he was going to grow, that type of thing.
Yeah. If there's one thing I was a little disappointed with is that, like, I later learned that Shin-Chan, he is a fan of, within the TV show, he is a fan of two TV shows. One is Action Mask, which is kind of like a parody of like Kamen Rider and Ultraman, and the other is of Kantam, which is a parody of Gundam. And the name is a parody of Gundam because you take the katakana for Gundam, take out the little markings attached to two of the symbols, and you have a completely different pronunciation. Ga is ka, da is ta. And the robot itself looks like Mazinger Z. And there's even like a really cool action figure that exists in real life made of the robot, the Kantam robot itself. So I thought it would have been cool if we had like Shin-Chan piloting that robot to fight Godzilla, but then you wouldn't get the humorous butt comedy that
right
you would get there. I just sent you an image right now of the robot itself, the toy of the Shin-Chan robot itself, Kantam.
Okay, so it's very like Mazinger Z like. But it's a show within a show, sort of like to go back to Rugrats, like Reptar is a show within the show for us, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're right on the ball there.
Okay.
Yeah, and I thought it would be cool. It would have been cool just to see a cameo. Me being the super robot fan that I am, it would have been cool seeing the robot from the show within the show to fight Godzilla. But that this is direction. If they did that, then it wouldn't really be a true Shin-Chan versus Godzilla
right,
fight.
right. I guess if them show up and get blown up real quick might have been interesting.
Right. The one thing is when you see Shin-Chan get off the bus and getting into the self-defense force kindergarten building, you see him with an action mask hat on before he puts on his uniform hat, and that's the one with the Ultraman eyes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Let's see. And it's also cool that when he grows big, he's doing a bunch of action poses like you would suspect from a typical superhero in Japanese entertainment.
Right, like the arm movements of an Ultraman or something like that he's doing. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so go into final thoughts. This was quite an amusing episode of the series. I think if you've never been exposed to Shin-Chan, I think there is still enough here to be amused by. I mean, the premise itself is so simple that I think anyone who has grown up with something like the Rugrats, or maybe even the Simpsons, or maybe, let's see, what's another slice of life show about kids? Or even little
Rugrats?
Kids. Yeah, I guess Rugrats is just the main thing that my mind that comes to mind. So basically, if you've seen Rugrats, and you probably can follow this slightly more cynical take on that sort of premise, and can get behind the more, and it's again, comedy is subjective, so this comedy style of slapsticky comedy might not work for everybody, and especially for someone who probably wouldn't even watch a show like Shin-Chan in the first place. But I think it's a decent enough special that for anyone to get some sort of amusement from.
Yeah, I definitely agree. If you're a Godzilla fan, this is worth you checking out for the, was it 8 to 12 minutes? I'm not even sure how long the video is. But
the full episode itself is 18 minutes, but the crossover portion is only 9 minutes long. So you're not going to be wasting a whole lot of time if you don't end up liking it.
Right.
So for me, it's a decent special. There are a few laughs here and there, and some interesting. It's a kind of interesting curiosity piece here for those interested in seeing how a more kiddie version of Shin Godzilla of all incarnations how it would work out. So I'll give this a decent 3 out of 5.
Yeah, I concur. 3 out of 5 is exactly how I place this as well. So.
All right then. So up next is our final installment of the history of Godzilla in animation, and I'm pretty sure you all know what it's going to be, because as of this recording, it'll be within a little over 24 hours, Godzilla Monster Planet, or Planet of the Monsters, or whatever they're going to go with officially on Netflix, will be released on the platform for the rest of the world to finally see months after it came out in Japan. And even though I've already reviewed it, I will definitely try to cover that film as the finale to our little mini series that we have here. So before going into it in this the calm before the storm, how do you feel right now about the movie and the build up to the movie, Matt?
The build up has been pretty big, I feel like, although from what early reviews I've seen, I'm trying to quell my excitement for it, because I don't want to be let down for it when it does finally come. It's not what I'm hoping it could be. I've tried to limit my spoilers to a certain extent, so I certainly won't mention any of them here for anybody who's listening to this. But I don't know, and I can also, in the back of my head, keep thinking Netflix is going to crash because so many people are trying to download it at one time, or whatever.
Everyone's going to try to upload it elsewhere.
Yeah. So we'll see. I'm definitely going to check it out when it comes out in about 23 hours now, I think. So I'll be looking at it there. But they haven't promoted it as much as I feel like they should have. Do you think that's the case as well? Like,
yeah, you're right about that, because we only got a trailer for it like a week or two ago, and nothing else.
right, unless you're looking for it. Like, I think outside of the Godzilla fan community, most Netflix subscribers have no idea that it's coming.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised when, like, Voltron came out of nowhere. Meanwhile, I think Castlevania got, like, a lot more exposure and build-up before this.
Yes. Yeah, I would think so. I definitely remember seeing that was coming. I haven't really seen much for, again, outside of the Godzilla community, that this film is coming, so...
So we'll see. I'm definitely going to re-review this film with Matt once we have the opportunity, especially when seeing it in English. It'll give me a better understanding of the dialogue and the characters, and all the tons and tons of exposition that I've already brought up in my review for that movie. So hopefully it'll turn out better, maybe worse, who knows. We'll see when we check out Godzilla Planet of the Monsters next time on Godzilla in Animation. I've been your host, Andres Perez, aka Kaiji Noir.
And I've been Matthew Denyon.
And until next time, everybody, take care.